Welcome back to the call up. We have a fun edition of the Heat Sheet this time around. Of course, I'm Arm Waiting. We've got Elijah Evans as well. We're checking in on the 2024 draft class and seeing who's performing across that entire class. And of course, reminding you who's already made it up to the big leagues and highlighting as many of the first rounders as we can, maybe a couple other notable outside of that as well. There's a lot of players from this class that already look really strong, and a class that people were kind of knocking on a year ago. Looks like it is doing a lot better than a lot of people would have expected. So excited to check in on that front. Elijah, you compiled a lot of these names and through the process, would you say you were surprised by how many players are doing well outside of the ones that were already kind of on the top of your mind?
No, I was for sure, and especially on the arm side, actually. I think there's a lot of arms in this draft class that are performing better than I maybe expected initially. When looking at this class last year, I think there was guys I liked. I remember, checking in on some college guys, second, third, fourth rounders, where I was like, oh, that could be a decent arm. But it's surprising how many arms are really throwing well from that class. In addition to the first round, you've got a lot of bats that are actually performing at a pretty high level, honestly. I think a lot of these hitters that were kind of those fringy first round guys where it was like you're not sure if they were going to hit as a first rounder, a lot of them look like they're in a pretty good path right now.
And the high school guys, right? All you heard about was Connor Griffin and Bryce Rayner, and maybe you get a little bit of Slade Caldwell conversation, a little bit of Theo Gillen, but you're getting a lot more excitement around. I think some of the guys that were in the compensation round are a little bit later than that, like a JD Dix with the Diamondbacks has been swinging it really well at the complex. You have a Tyson Lewis who I don't think any scouting reports had 70 raw on him. He's got 70 raw power in the Pirates, or excuse me, in the Reds organization. And then in the Pirates organization, a Wyatt Sanford, who was in the second round, another prep guy that is playing really, really well and already at low A and picking it great at shortstop. So that was a layer that people were like, oh, it's very college heavy. Yeah, I don't know about the high school class as much. And all of a sudden, you're seeing Connor Griffin look like a guy who we just put out one of our newest pieces of content. By the way, I have to plug that. Go to JB Originals on YouTube. Just put out a 5-minute video breaking down why Connor Griffin could be the next number one prospect in baseball, video breaking down the new swing, stuff like that. Please subscribe to that channel. Would love to have you guys check that out. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube right now as well, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. But that was a really fun video to put together. I think I'm going to do another one on Cal Raleigh soon too, which I'm excited to do. But point being, a lot of guys out of the high school crop are swinging it, or at least showing some intrigue. And that was a perceived maybe deficiency in this draft. Yeah. And then you mentioned the arms. That was another area. I think that was another knock. The one area everyone said, okay, you got college bats. A lot of good college bats here. Maybe a couple decent college arms at the top. A lot more than I think people were giving the class credit for.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think there's a lot of guys, and you mentioned the high school guys, and some of those we're not even getting to get to. A lot of high school guys, a lot of the guys I plucked were college because they're rising up the ranks and they're moving along here. But generally speaking, good production across the board from a lot of these college arms.
So let's walk through it. You can start wherever you want to start, and we'll get rolling. But I figure we start with the highlight in the big leaguers and go from there.
Yeah, well, we'll start on the big league side. Start with some of these guys that have gotten up already at this point. You've got your five guys, your main five, with that being Chase Burns, Nick Kurtz, Jack Caglione, Christian Moore, and Cam Smith. So 5 of the top 15 picks in this draft class that have already debuted heading into this season. And, really impressive, man. I mean, you look at these 5 and what they've done so far. There's been some ups and downs, of course, but we'll start with Chase Burns. We just saw debut. We talked about him last week in our heat sheet because he was dominating AAA, and then he comes up and he strikes out 5 of the first 6 batters he faces in the big leagues. Strikes out his first 6 outs recorded were strikeouts. It tailed off a little there in that last inning or two against the Yankees, right? Gave up a few runs, but Chase Burns stuff off the bat, you watch him for an inning against the Yankees, and you're like, okay, this guy's going to be an anchor for the Reds for many, many years.
Yeah, and can help them now. I mean, it was so impressive to just see the confidence, and I think we've talked about it. Just kind of one of the areas that I feel like I probably or definitely overlooked was that he could have the feel to pitch that he has really developed at the professional ranks, where you're seeing him locate the fastball east-west. You're seeing him, buzz it at the top. He's not tugging it down over the middle much. If you look at kind of the charts there and where he was locating, it was a lot at the top third of the zone, some at the knees, but not a lot of that cutting the fastball where it ends up kind of flattening out over the middle. And then he mixed in 8 changeups. And that's really the sweet spot there, where as long as he threw 81 pitches, so that's about 10% of his offerings. If he's mixing in the changeup 10% of the time, especially against lefties where you're going to see it a little bit more, that's just enough to keep them honest because that breaking ball is outrageously gross. The fastball velocity is always going to be there. Guys will be able to catch up to it as they get more used to it, but that's why the changeup can kind of throw them off a bit. And I just seeing the way that he could fill up the zone with that confidence, and I think that's what stood out the most to me, right? No nibbling. He didn't walk anybody. It was 8 punch outs. Yeah, he got beat for a homer. That's going to happen, especially in Great American Ballpark, and he wasn't worried about that at all. I mean, it's been really cool, and this draft class, I think, is another reminder of how talented these guys are nowadays, that they're going to get up there quick, and you can push them really, really quickly. And we just saw a guy make his debut, and if you don't want to count the one appearance we saw basically on the backfields last year, he made 13 starts in minor league baseball, and his 14th professional start is against the New York Yankees at home. Like, that's how good college baseball's gotten, and that's how talented these kids are getting.
Yeah, and you mentioned that changeup there. Those 8 changeups, right? 3 swings on those, 2 of them were strikeouts too. So you look at that pitch. That if that can be a decent third offering, again, it doesn't need to be used all the time. But a guy like Burns, the way he was filling up the zone with the fastball, with the slider, if he can have that changeup be something he uses 10% of the time and he gets a couple whiffs on it, it's going to continue to make those other 2 pitches that much better.
The biggest part too, a pitch that he kind of scrapped, what we talked about before at points last year. Now you include that last outing, 73% strike rate on the changeup this year for Chase Burns. That's going to unlock a lot for him.
No, 100%. The next guy getting to from there is Nick Kurtz, who it started a little slow, but man, it's starting to heat up for Nick Kurtz. You look at his last 15 games, he's up at an OPS of 933 in those games, 6 home runs in that span. The strikeout rate is still somewhat high for a guy like Kurtz, and he's still walking a little bit less than I think we think he will at some point. I think he's going to hopefully get to a point where he is walking a bit more, but regardless of all of that, 43 games in his big league career, 11 homers, the total of 17 extra base hits. He's got an OPS at 828 after a pretty slow start too.
Since he's rejoined the club, it's just, he seems like he's been a lot more settled in. And I like that you mentioned the walk thing. He will walk ultimately.
Yeah, right.
What we've seen a lot of times with these power guys as they're getting up, I think big league pitchers, like, why nibble, right? At the end of the day, they're facing proven power bats all the time. A guy like Nick Kurtz is not used to being attacked. Go after him. And I think that's what affected him a little bit in the beginning. And now he's ambushing and he's comfortable and he's hit those 6 home runs in 14 games. But because pitchers are going after him a little bit more, he just doesn't even have the opportunity to walk. He's only chasing at a 20% clip right now and swinging at a 45% clip. So it's not like he's expanding or he's aggressive or anything like that. It's more pitchers are going after him. And in doing so, they've allowed 6 home runs in 14 games. So they're going to start to adjust and see if he chases. And I think that's only going to work to his favor because he's a guy that's very comfortable going deep in counts and very comfortable kind of zeroing in on where he wants to look for his pitch. And clearly a very disciplined hitter. He's going to swing and miss. There's a lot of off to that swing. I think 4-seamers are going to give him some trouble here and there. But I think the fact that he's already managing that decently, he's going to get better and better in that regard. This is another player that you look at the archetype, should not be just jumping into the big leagues and having success. You'd think there'd be, some swing and miss and some challenges there, but it's a guy that hit 5 home runs in a span of 6 games. He's clearly comfortable and he's only going to get better.
Yeah. Another guy that was, kind of in tandem with him going through that draft process as first baseman, but now is playing the outfield in the big leagues. Jack Caglianone is 20 games in for Cags, and it's been a little shaky so far. We've seen some of those signs, right? Like we've seen the exit velos, we've seen him hit the ball incredibly hard. Looks sneaky solid in the outfield too. I think that was one thing we were talking about a month or two ago was like, can he be a decent big league outfielder because that can push him up prospect boards, right? You look at a guy that's playing in the outfield. He's got 15 games in right and then 5 games at first base. So he's primarily playing right field for Kansas City and a team that desperately needs outfield help. It hasn't been great so far through 20 games, right? He's in 178, but 532 OPS, right? So it hasn't been the best, but we've seen signs, and he's also not striking out a ton, which is a big thing for Cags. 16 strikeouts across 20 games for him is actually a really good sign, and I think he has gotten a little unlucky as well.
Definitely. I mean, a guy that hits
Yeah,
the ball incredibly hard, and you look at the ex Woba versus Woba, it's 247 versus 362 on the expected side. So you hope that that'll start to even out a little bit more. The interesting thing, and this is it's just the same conversation, right? Is he puts the ball on the ground a little bit. That's always going to be something with him. But again, when you're elite EVs and at least decent contact rates, you can get away with that. But it's
yeah,
definitely want to see him elevate a bit more. And the chase rate is somewhat high. I don't think it's been egregious though, right? You have a 20 game sample here where he's chasing at about a 35% clip. I think if he can hover there or a little bit below, you'll see him be productive enough. You definitely want to keep that under 40. But I don't think it's bad because you also look at the home run that he hit. Like that was a chase swing. That was
right,
6 inches up. So his plate coverage, pitches that he's going to get dinged for chasing, not are not necessarily bad chases. I think the
yeah,
bigger thing to monitor with him right now is just at what angles he's hitting the ball at, right? The average launch angle on hard hit baseballs right now for him is about 9 degrees. So I'm less worried about the ground ball rate because if you hit it 110 into the ground, it's gonna get through sometimes. I'm more worried about when you're hitting it hard, what percentage of those are going to be in the air. And I think at the end of the day, that's something that he has had a lot of success with and will be able to do that more consistently. Like usually when he's getting his best swings off, it's in the air. And the B swings will be a ground ball that's still somehow 110 and it'll get through. But right now, I think it's a matter of just trying to get the ball in the air a bit more consistently. I think he'll get there. He's adjusting. As you mentioned, 20% K rate, not bad at all. I do think he's going to settle in here, and
yeah.
it's good that they started this process now because
Right.
he's going to probably be more productive than any bat that they were reasonably going to acquire. I don't know what they're going to do, but you hope that a second half CAGs can give you a little bit more than maybe what they would have been able to go out and get.
Yeah, give them a jolt to that offense, and he proved everything he needed to prove in the minor leagues, right? Like this is a guy who I think the development. You've said this before. The development kind of has to come at this level for him to figure out those slight things that he needs to keep working on. Like you mentioned, like it kind of has to be at the big league level. He's just
Yep.
too good to be doing that at the minor league level. So I think it's going to be a good thing for the Royals ultimately, and they need bats. So for him, like you just you get him in that lineup, and just see what happens. And I think you're going to end up getting some pop numbers from him as the season goes on. The next one up is Christian Moore, who we've seen only a 13 game sample from, so pretty limited here. From the Angels, was an eighth overall pick there. He's 13 games so far. He's slashing 175, 227, 450. We've seen some serious barrels from Moore, right? We had that 2 homer game. We've seen some of those signs from him, right? 12% barrel rate through those first handful of games, right? Is doing some things well, but whiffing a lot, striking out at 37% clip. He's whiffing over 40% right now, right? So it's definitely been a mixed bag. You've had a few of those good moments, but 13 games, I think a lot of time for Christian Moore still to settle in here.
It's crazy because, you look at what he was doing in double A,
Yeah.
the whiff was really an issue for him there. And
Yep.
then they brought him up to the PCL where it's probably actually easier to hit and the numbers really jumped. And then you get him up to the show and yeah, he's whiffing, but he's also been able to get to his slug a little bit. And I think that's just a testament to the fact that like he's going to swing and miss. I don't think he's afraid of that. And he's going to get his best swing off as consistently as possible. I do think ultimately he's going to the best version of him is probably leaning into that 3 true outcome player
Yeah.
at second base. But I think what we've also seen that is very clear is that he's got just some of the intangibles in terms of he's not going to shy away from a big moment. He's kind of unfazed out there, which I think is a good thing, and he plays at just full speed. But I do think the whiff is still a major concern and
Yeah.
a reason why I wouldn't have fast tracked him to the big leagues. And I do think we're going to see that be an issue and might actually be too much of an issue. When he was coming out of the draft, my biggest concern was how he would handle four seam fastballs with the swing path and just from what I had watched in the video. And so far, it's not a huge sample, of course, but in the big leagues, four seam fastballs have just blown him up overall. And I know he's gotten to a couple, but a 31% swinging strike rate on four seam fastballs is just not really going to play. And then if you look at in combining the double A and triple A stint, it's a 67% in zone contact rate on four seam fastballs. So he's going to need to improve upon that. And I think he's going to need to have those chase rates more similar to where he was at in the minor leagues, which was low 20%. It's been higher in the big leagues, natural. But I think the best version of him is going to be that 3 true outcome power second baseman. And I am a little bit worried though that he runs into a bit of a wall from the
Mm.
contact standpoint. Like the other guys that we talked about mashed their way through the minor leagues. Christian Moore got brought up from Double A for a more favorable hitting situation, and then got pushed to the show because it's the Angels. And I don't know necessarily how I feel about
No.
that, though he is definitely talented.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been. I think the Double A where he was struggling a bit could have been time to be there a little bit longer, maybe, and we would have seen a slightly different outcome. But I still think there's time for Christian Moore. From there, the last guy in the big leagues is a guy that you know had said at the time of the draft like this should be a top 10 pick, and he ends up going 14th overall to the Cubs, gets flipped in that Kyle Tucker trade to the Astros, and then Cam Smith learns an entirely new position in the outfield and has still been a pretty productive major league player in all things considered, especially in the past month or two here. Through after making the team out of camp, right, 67 games for Cam Smith, 265, 336, 398, so 734 OPS, and that continues to rise of late. Almost 20, 19 extra base hits. The strikeout rate's a little bit high for him still, for sure, but generally speaking, pretty solid metrics across the board for a guy who barely played in the minors and then was put in right field for the first time in his career out of spring training this year.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
I understand I'm gonna have a little bit of a bias because it's always been one of my favorite prospects out of that class, and definitely a
yeah.
guy that I was pushing pretty hard. But you mentioned the fact that he traded, learns a new position. The fact that he is not only holding his own at that position,
It's been
he's
good.
good. It's 8 defensive runs saved and it's 4 outs above average. I understand like the priority right now is extending Jeremy Pena, but with the offensive ability that we're starting to see, and I think he's just scraping the surface, of course. A guy that did not play much in the minor leagues, as you alluded to, 27 games between low A and high A, and then 5 more in double A. That's it. That's it. Those were all last year. It's a situation here where I look at him and say, how much better is he going to be next year? Like it's kind of the Zach Neto conversation, except I think he's ahead of where Neto was at when Neto first got up, and he didn't have to learn a new position. I know Neto was playing shortstop, so it's a little apples to oranges, but I do think that there is something to be said here. I would be looking at a pre-arb extension with this guy, and I wouldn't be too worried about it because he's going to play a phenomenal defensive right field as he continues to get more reps out there. You know that he's going to be able to handle it offensively to at least be a slightly above average bat, but I think you're only going to see him get better and better in that regard too. And the makeup is off the charts. I think this has been. Would you say he's been the most impressive player of the class so far?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Burns could
Burns, you can
easily
make the
take that
Burns
soon.
case.
Yeah, Burns could take it soon, but I think that it's hard to argue against a guy who stepped into a new position out of camp on a new team after just getting traded and is playing a high-end defense at a new spot and is starting to hit, man. I mean,
For a
it's
team
not
that's
like
in first place.
a good team too. And you look at this trade, man, and it's hard to not think like, if the Cubs don't make a run this year, the Astros are winning this trade pretty clearly
Oh
because
yeah.
it doesn't seem like they're not going to get a Tucker extension done. It's going to come down to free agency. Maybe they find a way to keep him. If they find a way to keep him, great. If the Cubs lose Kyle Tucker and they don't win the World Series this year, Isaac Paredes is also raking lately, and
Yep.
now the Astros have their right fielder of the future in Cam Smith. It's a pretty savvy move when you look at it from the Astros perspective.
It's working out. And
Yeah,
look, I get why the Cubs did it. And if this gives them an inside track to be able to retain a Tucker,
sure.
then it's worth it. But for the Astros, I think their long term situation looks far different if they don't make this trade, right? Where you have an opportunity to also potentially extend Paredes, team that likes to kind of work
Yep.
between the margins. We were looking at their farm system, what their future could be. Now you have a Pena who looks like he's going to be extended sooner rather than later. I think they'll pull that deal off. Paredes who's still under control for another couple years, and then even if you don't extend a Cam Smith, you got 5 years of control with him too. I mean, they're in a fun spot. I think now where they can actually set themselves up to still have a solid competitive roster moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. So those are the guys that are in the bigs. There's one more guy who did debut earlier that we'll talk about later because he's back in the minors. But before then, let's get through a handful of first round guys before we get into some of these hot sheet sleepers we've got throughout the rest of the draft. Starting with the top pick, Travis Bazzana, just a brief check in. Went down with the injury in May, mid May, I believe. Is expected to be out till around the beginning of August or so. Where do you think Travis Bazzana's timeline is at if he's getting back into games, let's say beginning of August?
I mean, I think you're not seeing this guy debut
Yeah.
this year. I don't think, especially off of It was oblique, right?
Oblique.
And
Yeah, it's not fun.
the swing and miss has been interesting because it's not egregious by any means in terms of the
Right.
contact rates, but he was striking out 26% of the time. And that was a bit of a surprise, especially when you look at 86% in zone contact rate, 80% overall contact rate. It's a low chase rate. So it's why is he striking out? Maybe he's getting into deep counts too frequently. And then for whatever reason, it was just getting beat a bit too much. I think we saw some people get maybe a little bit over worried about it too, though,
Yeah.
where I'm seeing people start to jump ship a little bit. He
It's a
still was
month and a
putting up
half.
good numbers, and he's still hitting the ball in the air at a really high clip. I think you see him if he has a great spring, they could justify it as a break camp candidate because of the pick
Yeah.
aspects as well. But I think he would have to come back in August, have a nice month. He is an Arizona Fall League candidate, and I think that could be an area where he makes up some reps, and then go from there. But I do think you're looking at a mid-season next year call up most likely because I'd rather him get right physically and just settle in a little bit more because he's a little bit of a tweener right now offensively because he's not going to hit 30 bombs. Yeah, the power is decent. He could hit 20, but if the hit tool is not comfortably plus, it is a little bit of this tweener profile.
Which we thought it was always going to be that plus hit, at least plus hit, right? So
Yep.
now it's like you got to figure out where that hit tool's at with him. But he should be back August, and hopefully we'll get 2 months of really good looks at him in a fully healthy way, which would be great for him. We don't need to talk about this guy much because we've done a ton about it, but I want you to plug your video quickly. Connor Griffin, ninth overall, pick for the Pirates last year. You just made a video, JB Originals, like you mentioned earlier, breaking down his development. This guy has just been on an unreal tear, being the ninth overall pick. I remember at the time I selfishly wanted him to go fifth to the White Sox a little bit, and now I'm sort of wishing he did. But he's just been incredible, and we've got him at 18 on the top 100, and obviously someone that's going to continue to rise. I think will probably crack that top 10.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the biggest thing for me is just seeing him get to high A again, a guy with hit tool concerns, and he's had 13 games at high A now, and he's slashing 333, 431, 537. It's a 968 OPS. He was playing shortstop for the first like 7, 8 games out there with a DH or two mixed in, and then back-to-back games in center field where he made a highlight reel catch there as well. Like that's the other side of it that's insane. He's hitting the way that he's hitting, and then he's playing defense at a high level, multiple premium positions. The other side of it is low A to high A. I mean, that's a jump for a 19-year-old prep power bat, and he's striking out 15% of the time in high A. This guy has, as I alluded to in the video, which I don't want to spoil it all, so definitely go check it out. I talk about what has kind of shifted here with him, but he has number one prospect in baseball upside, and we talk about McGonigal and all that. But if Griffin is torching through high A, there's a case for Griffin to just make that leap all the way to the top with the skill set and tools that he has. By the way, in 13 high A games, he also swiped 8 bags.
it's crazy. He's doing everything. I mean, he really is. It's been impressive from him across the board. So yeah, definitely everybody should check out that video. We're going to be pumping out a lot of good content on JB Originals, and that's one that's worth checking out for a guy that's going to be one of the better prospects in all of baseball. Moving on to the pick after Griffin, 10th overall pick by the Nationals was Seaver King, who started really slow this season, and I was looking at the numbers and I was like, oh, Seaver King's not hitting much. Gets on a tear in high A during this last week or two in high A, gets the bump to double A, and has now gone through 19 games in double A where he is struggling a little bit, but you saw a lot of those positive signs at the end of his time in high A, and now you've got a guy who's a 22-year-old shortstop in double A who's settling in. It's going to take him a little bit, but it's still exciting to keep an eye on a 10th overall guy who could keep moving at this point.
Yeah, you've seen the flashes,
Yeah,
and I think that they were waiting for that little high A stretch so that they could bump
right.
him pretty quickly there. This is not your typical college bat. This is
Right.
like D2 transfer 1 year at Wake that is tools galore and is going to take some time. The chase is high, but the contact rates are solidly average, maybe slightly above, and the EVs are great. So it's going to take time. He's going to need to learn how to hit the ball in the air. These are all things that we knew. We knew he was going to be aggressive. We knew that the path was a bit flatter. Are the Nationals the best organization to get him right? I don't know. But the tools are there. He's a young 22. He doesn't turn 23 till after next season's underway. And he has time to look, if he stalls out in Double A this year, that's fine. Work through it. He's more of a project. So,
Yeah.
of course, you want to see a little bit more, especially with the high school guys doing what they're doing. But I think you're seeing him get a little bit better, as you mentioned that high A stint, and then I think he's settling in a little bit in Double A. It's going to be a process, but if it all works out for him, he can be a monster. And I think overall, you got to be slightly encouraged by the fact that he's just not whiffing a ton, which is good.
Yeah, that's a good step forward for King there. The next one up is Braden Montgomery, who was at the time the 12th pick of the Red Sox, goes over in the Garrett Crochet trade to the White Sox. I'll take it a little bit here off the rip because Montgomery's had a funny season because he starts in Single A, coming off of a year almost of not playing baseball off the ankle injury last year. He starts in Single A and he just destroys. He runs through Single A. It looked ridiculous. It was like, why is this guy wasting his time in Single A? Goes up to high A for the White Sox in Winston-Salem, has an incredible first week or two. You've already got White Sox fans saying send him straight to Double A. Then he has a couple weeks stretch where he couldn't buy a hit. I mean, it was really rough for like 2 weeks. And now the past couple weeks, Montgomery's starting to do not quite what he was doing in Single A, but it's much better again. Hitting 300 in the month of June. He's got a couple homers the past 2 weeks. He's striking out at a pretty low clip compared to what he was in that little struggle stint. But so it's been up and down, right? He had that few weeks of struggle, but generally speaking, Braden Montgomery has been very encouraging, and he's had a little more impact from the right side of the plate than I expected, because that was one thing with him where it was always like, oh, is he just going to be a lefty, even though he's been switch hitting, because he was always better from the left side in college. Now you're starting to see the right side tick up a little bit the other direction.
It's funny you mentioned that because his raw EVs are so much better from the left side, but
Right.
he hits the ball in the air a lot more consistently
He's
from
pulling
the right
it.
side. So he I think has just figured that out and said, okay, well, I'm not going to have as much bat speed from that right side. Let me make sure that I have a little bit more loft and I can just catch those lefty breaking balls coming in and be able. You don't have to worry as much about four seamers at the top and stuff like that when you're only facing left-handed pitching. So I think that is something that has definitely been an improvement for him. I think when you look at the left side of the plate for him, ground ball rate creeps up to 57%. It's a little bit high.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, he's exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
I liked him for sure. But I had some concerns. I thought the swing and miss could be a little bit more prevalent. And I thought that the approach could be a bit limiting. Both have been fine. And if both get to a point where they're average, he's going to be just fine. He's going to be an above average regular for a long time because of how hard he hits the baseball. He's a good athlete. He has the ingredients to be a good defender. My question for you is, they were playing him in center a lot. He
Scrapped it.
He was a little bit hurt too. He DH'd like a week straight. Then they said no more. They moved him to right. Was that because it was that he just didn't look great out there? Or
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there was a nagging injury that they were trying to limit with him, so he was DHing little and him right. I don't think he looked bad in center. I watched a handful of the games in Canny where he looked okay, but I just think they've looked at it and been like, okay, this is a right field profile, which is fine, and I think that was always the expectation with him. So now that he's at the high level, and there's some other guys that play center decently well at that team, like, I think it was just a combination of the injury, but also just looking at him and saying, this is probably a right fielder, so let's just get him all the reps we can out there.
my last thing with him is what's kind of the timeline, you think? Are they going to take it slow because he's coming off of injury? And again, I think he is a little bit more delicate of a profile than some of the other guys, because that whiff can sneak up there quickly if he's rushed, and you don't want to unravel what is, I think, a really good process right now where he is building up and exceeding some of the expectations. I would have taken the over on a 25% K rate going into this year.
Yeah, and 21 now on the season. It's pretty solid.
More than fine.
And has gotten lower actually in high A from single A. So I think the timeline's tricky there because the Sox they're not hesitating with some prospects right now. When you see Schultz go up to AAA, you see Graham Taylor go to the bigs. A lot of these guys are moving right now and moving a little bit quicker than I expected. Actually, I think he'll get to double later in the season. I don't think he goes past that. I don't think there's a reason to go past that. But I do think he'll get to Birmingham in Double A and for probably a month, maybe a month or two at the end of the season. Finish out there and then come into spring training next year with the aim of eventually taking over in right field next season. It won't be. I don't think it'll be out of camp. I mean, that'd be a little aggressive, but I think that at some point next season, you want him starting in right field.
I like that. I mean, it's a great get for them.
Yeah,
I mean, the package
I
is
mean
looking good
the
at all
other
three
the other
returns.
three are in the bigs right now. I mean Kyle Teal's got a 400 on both Kyle Teal and Chase Mydroth over 400 on base percentage in the big league so far, and you've got Wilkin Gonzalez who at the time was a starter but was always the reliever profile for
Yeah.
people who checked in on him, looking actually pretty good at the bullpen. The stuff is playing up out of the bullpen for him in Chicago, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery, I think, is the big X factor in this deal, and
Yeah.
early returns, I think overall have been pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. Next guy up is Theo Gillen of the. I think that's how you say it. Am I right on the name pronunciation there,
I
Gillen?
always said Gillen, but
As
I
Theo Gillen of the Rays, 18th overall pick there, has been impressive this
mhm.
season for a guy who's 19 years old. He'll be 20 at the end of the season, so was a bit of an older high school pick last year, but is in single A all season and has generally been productive all year. And really, the approach is one thing for him that is just
Mhm.
incredibly good. Has a higher walk rate than a strikeout rate this year at 23% walk rate on the year for Gillen, a 164 WRC plus because of that. He's still hitting some slug. 5 homers. It's not a ton of power, but he's starting to tap into a little bit of that while also stealing 26 bags this year. You're looking at a pretty fun young piece here for the Rays, who always find these young guys and develop them very well.
I love what I've seen from him, and it's just a lot of injury history. I think is what slowed him down a bit in terms of his stock, but really good athlete. Still learning to play center. Right, they're moving
Yeah,
him off the dirt from that's where he was playing as an amateur, but I mean, the bat, it's a really smooth swing from the left side. You mentioned the 5 homers, but the raw power looks like he could be tapping into more as he gets more comfortable, just elevating consistently and just getting into it in general. 90th percentile of 105 is more than
yeah,
enough for a guy that's 19 years old at this point with average contact rates maybe slightly above and a chase rate of 12%. You pair that with really good speed and a guy that I do think ultimately will be, and already kind of is a menace on the base paths.
yeah.
I'm looking at the stolen base numbers right now. He's swiped in 43 games. He's 26 for 27.
Whew.
This is a really fun player that, I mean, he was on our top 100 list. I think he's going to start flying up and being on all of the lists by midseason.
Yeah, and you just start to see the batted ball data from him is just getting better. Like even from last year, his little stint in single A, ground ball rate down 16% from last year. The line drive rate is up a ton. He's really starting to get it off the ground and start to see what that looks like, and at a really early point in his career too. So I think every sign has been pretty positive here this season from him.
It's just all about the health. He's had a
Yeah, right.
interesting history there with shoulder, knee, all that. But I agree. I mean, he clearly. I was watching some video from the end of last year. There was a lot of rollovers. It was a little bit of a question of okay, well, is he going to be able to tap into that raw power that I think people are excited and are projecting, and quickly has been able to do that, as you said.
Yeah, just so everybody's aware, there's a couple names I'm not mentioning, but just guys that we've talked about a lot before. Carson Benz, Trey Savage, we've talked about them on the show, so I'm kind of going through some names we haven't talked about as much. And another one we haven't talked about as much that I'm excited to get your opinion on here because we talked about him as a borderline top 100 guy was Kalen Culpepper of the Twins,
Mm-hmm.
was the 21st overall pick last year, and he is in Double A now, moving pretty well after kind of breezing through High A, and now just got promoted to Double A last week. His first 4 games, he already has a handful of hits there. He's mashing initially, but really looked good through the first half of the season here in High A for Culpepper.
Yeah, it's been fun. I definitely a guy that I thought was high floor, high probability,
Right.
average, regular, but you started to wonder what's that ceiling going to look like, and is he going to be able to stick it short? And I think you're seeing a higher chance of him being able to stick it short, and you're also seeing another guy that has just adjusted on the fly really well. First 30 games, it was a ground ball rate of 62%. Yeah, he was swinging well, but it was a high ground ball rate. Since then, he's cut that ground ball rate to like 42%,
Nice.
and you're seeing that result in more power. The other concern I had that just held him out of the top 100 was secondary chase, especially spin. He's cut into that a little bit, but he's pulverizing fastballs. And he's a guy that's not going to put up big EVs. So the air pull side of things is important. And he's starting to do that. And so seeing that side of things is super encouraging. Back to back games with home runs as we're recording this at the Double A level. He looks like a guy that can move pretty quickly. And I don't think he'll have one plus tool, but I think he could be 50s across the board. And if
Yeah.
you're 50s across the board at shortstop, you're going to be a good player for a long time.
Yeah, and doesn't strike out much. He's been kind of keeping that,
Yep.
16% at the high level, walking at a pretty good clip. I mean, like you said, it's just solid all around. There's nothing that's, standing out where like, oh, that's an amazing trait right now, but it's still very solid in most aspects of the game. Do you see it sticking at short?
I think he can. I
Yeah.
do. He has gotten so much better from when I was watching him, even in college, and towards the end of the year, he got more comfortable. And then I think just seeing professionally, the moving laterally better. I think he could be an average defender there. If he's a 50 grade defender there, that takes a lot of pressure off the bat too. Because I was kind of worried. I'm like, okay, if he moves over to third, now you need a little bit more
Right.
offensively. But if he does move to third, he could now. He at least now looks like a guy that could be an above average defender there. That could still work, but I think the intent and the focus has been how can I stick it short because it really elevates the overall profile.
Yeah, 100%. Last one to mention here from the first round is 24th overall pick Cam Caminiti of the Braves, and this was someone who you had labeled as like one of the bigger steals of the first round out of the draft. 17 years old coming out of the draft, deals with a forearm injury at the beginning of this year, which delayed his start a little bit. He makes a few rehab starts in the complex. 3 starts into his single A season right now, just the past 3 weeks here, and one blow up where he couldn't find the zone really, and 2 very good starts.
Mhm.
So you're looking at 3 starts from a guy who was recently he's 18 now, but he was 17 at draft time, right? And now he's just getting settled back in after that injury. And 2 of his 3 starts in single A this season have been 1 run and no run outings. 4 innings, 5 innings, and at least 6 Ks in both of those 2 starts. So aside from the one start in the middle where he just couldn't find the zone, he gets pulled in the third inning. 2 of his 3 starts off the rehab look very good so far from Caminiti.
Yeah, man. I actually didn't even really know about the forearm thing, and I was wondering
Yeah,
like what the
yeah, he
updates were
didn't
going to be
throw.
there. And teams are always going to be so weird about
Yeah,
pitcher arm injuries. It's like hockey, right? Let's just say like upper body or whatever. But he's been nasty. Like, really, the last outing they stretched him out to 73 pitches, and the velo dipped a little bit. But I think it's more just getting back into the shape of things. The thing that we had talked about when we did the Brave system is how the Braves really do help their arms create difficult angles. So it's like, okay, based on the way that you throw, we're going to try to optimize where you should be oriented on the rubber. And so he's got this slight crossfire thing going on,
mm,
and he works down on the mound pretty well. And he sets up, like, especially left on left, far left side of that rubber at like arm side for him. And it just seems like a miserable angle for those left-handed hitters. And then even for righties, being on that far left side of the rubber, he stays closed for so long. I think it's hard for righties to see what's coming out of his hand as well.
yeah,
That outing, the first one that you alluded to, the 5 innings of
yeah.
62 pitches, he goes 5 innings and he strikes out 8 and allows 1 run. That video was crazy. I watched that and
Yeah.
I was like, we might just need to throw him right in the top 100 list now. But he looks free, easy. I think this is going to be a monster. Like I really do. And I think he is going to be a top 100 prospect very soon. And I think this is a guy that the Braves may end up pushing kind of quickly here as long as he's healthy and looking comfortable. But I don't know. It's even just beyond what I could quantify. If you just
Yeah.
watch him throw, he just looks athletic. He looks like a pitcher, and it looks like he's got more velo in the tank.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was 13 whiffs in that game, and in his first single A game in those 5 innings with those 8 Ks. So, yeah, definitely a lot to like there from Caminiti. I think he was someone who we looked at as a first rounder who could end up being very good given a year or two to really have it shine. And now you're seeing him start to put it together, and hopefully, if he can stay healthy the rest of this year, we'll see him climb. I could definitely see that Smith Shawver, that Owen Murphy kind of quick, let's just get him moving type of thing with the Braves if he shows the stuff he's showed in these first few starts. Let's get out of the first round a little here. Let's get into some deep cuts. I got a few hitters and then I got a handful of pitchers because some of the pitchers are super exciting. The first one is Jared Thomas. Jared Thomas was the second rounder of the Rockies and has started to kind of put it together. This was a college bat, someone that I think was always going to was going to hit at some of those levels, but now you're starting to see it even more with Thomas lately. I'm trying to pull his last games, but Thomas has been really good. His last
Whoa.
24 games, so the
Yeah, I'm
past
looking right
month
now. Holy
for him,
crap.
yeah, the past month for him, 360, 448, 570. That's a 1018 OPS for him. In that time, a pretty good high walk rate, a tolerable strikeout rate, and then 11 extra base hits in those past 24 games. Also stealing some bags too. Jared Thomas looks like he's figuring it out, especially the past month or so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I was a little skeptical at first.
Yeah.
just looking at some of the college data, it seemed like a tweener profile as well, but he has added some raw pop, and you're seeing that now translate in games. It's a little pull happy, but I think he makes it work well enough. Hits the ball in the air super consistently as well, which helps. But yeah, you mentioned it, like that stretch, dude. Like the last 30 games, he's got a hard hit rate of 50%. I mean,
Yeah.
the athleticism being a part of his game a little bit too now, and stealing some bags. I am very interested to see how he responds to a potential double A push, and that's always the big test, right? Because ball flies in Spokane a little bit more, ball definitely flies in Albuquerque, but it's a little bit of a test in Hartford. But I do wonder if they push him to Hartford relatively soon because his last 9 games in high A, he has 17 hits. He's hitting
Yeah.
450 in that span. So yeah, he's clearly figured something out here, as you mentioned. And I mean, the Rockies need all the help they can get. Is starting to look better as well. So they could have two bats that all of a sudden are getting hot here as we get to the second half of the season.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that'd be nice for them. They got the two top bats in this draft for them. If those guys can become pieces, especially at course with the raw power, would be really nice for the Rockies going forward. If they have a couple of pieces, they can kind of pencil into that outfield going forward.
I mean, they'll take whatever they can get right now.
Yeah,
And I hope
bats.
that they don't get in their guys' heads too much because I think you're seeing a lot of
Yeah,
like a Zach Veen and guys that Adel Amador. There's no reason that guy shouldn't be hitting. Like it seems like they got a lot of
yeah,
voices in a lot of different directions on their hitters right now. And that's why I like that they're taking these college bats that hopefully I know Condon actually does need a mechanical adjustment. I hope that comes elsewhere and he just sticks to it. But
yeah.
generally speaking, take the college bats that don't need as much work because I don't think the Rockies are the best at getting their guys right.
That's fair. Another guy that you have been on this past couple months, and definitely the first person on a top 100 with him, Mike Sirota of the Dodgers, was a third-round pick by the Reds. Gets traded in that Gavin Lux deal this offseason. Sirota's numbers are not only good, but they're the exact same at single A and now in high A. Like that's the most impressive thing for me is he's 24 games in single A, 27 games now in high A. 1130 OPS versus 1114 OPS, 7 homers and 8 doubles versus 6 homers and 8 doubles. It's the
Wow.
same thing, and he's walking in an even better clip now since that promotion. But he has literally not regressed at all since a bump to the next level, and the numbers are some of the best in minor league baseball this season.
Did you think he'd slow down a little bit in high A?
Not really, maybe a
I
little.
kind of
You'd
did.
think a little. I mean, you'd
I
think a
thought he
little bit.
would, honestly, because I was like, okay, I did think that he
Yeah,
had figured something out and
right.
made some adjustments, but Northeastern, kind of mid major guy,
True.
not facing
Yeah.
the best competition. Okay, he's succeeding now in low A with the adjustments he's made.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, high A competition now, that might put you on your heels just a little bit, maybe a little bit. It
Yeah.
hasn't at all, to your point.
Yeah.
It's been remarkable. I think the biggest surprise for me has been the uptick in power. Where
Right.
and hindsight's 2020. I'm trying to go back and think about like I do remember looking at the underlying data and saying, man, I out of college, I definitely don't see a first round guy. But trying to remove the hindsight, do you think it's crazy that he fell to the third round?
Kinda. I mean, this was a guy who was talked about. I mean, I remember him getting talks of mid first round, right?
They
Like
were
there
talking
was
top 10.
top 10 was the top out of the draft. I'm like, yeah, I get he had a bad rough last year in school, but like it's
It
when
wasn't
you
even
look at
that
it
bad, too. That's
now,
the
yeah,
craziest part.
exactly.
Like
Compared to the year before, right? It was bad, right?
the
But like you look
data
at it
wasn't
now,
great. But
yeah,
like, okay, well, how do you go from top 10 to third round? Like that's the craziest part. But whatever changes he made, and I detailed those actually in a JB Originals as well.
yeah,
You can check that out. The changes that he did make seem to have just allowed him to use the ground way more effectively, tap into this power that I guess scouts, when he was lauded as a top 10 guy, had seen potentially having in the tank because he wasn't putting that up with metal. His 90th percentile exit velocity is up 4 miles per hour with wood than it was with metal. So the fact that that's happening is really encouraging. The
yeah,
approach is ridiculously elite. Like it's not just the low chase, it's the spin recognition, it's the spots that he's picking to ambush. It's overall just good swing decisions. Pairing that with uptick in power, he's gonna still whiff a little bit, and I think that's something that you'll see maybe creep up at the Double A level. But when you have the defensive ability that he has too, like to stick in center and play a decent center, I mean, this is a guy that should be. I mean, he could easily be a top 50 prospect in the next update because of the EVs, because of the positional value, and every time I think he's going to slow down, he had like a two straight hitless games in Peoria, and then legitimately the last two games in Fort Wayne, home run, 5 hits. So this guy may just never slow down.
Yeah, he's on a rocket ship, and again, I mean, 200 WRC plus in single A, and then it drops to just 199 in high
Oh
A.
my gosh,
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, it's
199.
at that level too. Like the only person doing that in that league right now, that same place right now, is Kevin McGonigal, who might be a top two prospect in baseball soon. So those are the only two guys that are hitting at that quite that level in that league right now. One last hitter on the college front, a guy that I just remember hearing a lot of very mixed reviews about coming out of college was Dakota Jordan of the
Yeah.
Giants. Fourth round pick. I remember I heard some like second round buzz on him, and then when it got to like the fourth round, it was like, oh, this guy's just gonna keep falling. He just keeps falling. He was projected a lot higher than the fourth round. To when he ended up getting swooped up by the Giants. His past month, Dakota Jordan hitting 320, 369, 524, and almost a 900 OPS in that span. Still whiffing for sure, and that was one of the
Mhm.
big concerns with him. But you're starting to see the power really come through, in that span, and also just speed too. Speed, power, and just a combination of a little bit of everything from him in that month with 11 extra base hits. He's putting the ball in play, and it just is a clear improvement from even earlier in the season. You see it start to tick up this last month for Jordan.
Do you remember having much of an opinion on him coming out of the draft?
I was a little scared of him, but
Yeah, I was
liked
terrified.
the. I was scared of it, but it was interesting. It was at least
Yes.
intriguing me enough where it was like, okay, this guy's got speed. The raw power's there. I'm interested to see what it happens, but I was scared of it for sure.
In the fourth round, absolutely. In the second round,
Right. That's
I
where it
don't know
was.
because I don't. He had one of the highest whiff rates for a college bat that you were going to see with any top 2 round buzz. I mean, we're talking like
Yep.
73% in zone contact rate in college. Like that's I don't. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a guy drafted in the first 5 rounds in the last
Yeah.
decade with
Yeah.
those numbers. So I was kind of like, ugh, yeah, I get he's a freak athlete. He's not even. He wasn't even the best defender in center field at that point. He's
Right.
also developed a lot there. I I underestimated Dakota Jordan's ability to adjust and improve. His
Yeah.
contact rates are better as a pro now than they were in college, and stuff like that's always fascinating. As you mentioned, though, he's definitely still whiffing a little bit,
Yeah.
and he's still chasing. It's a 31% chase, and it's a 78% in zone contact rate. But that's a big step forward from what I was expecting, especially when you're going from college to low A. It is low A, but
Right.
they drafted him knowing that he was going to be a project. This is
Yes.
going to be that's going to debut. This is going to be a guy that debuts at 24, 25. And when he does, you could be a rocket ship, but at the same time, you also know that he could be a guy that flames out in double A. This is still a huge first step that I didn't expect
Yeah.
to see this quickly, even in low A, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
And that's why it makes sense. Yeah.
I think it's super encouraging overall. And especially in the fourth round with that speed power combination, he's definitely an up arrow.
Yeah, something to like there for sure, and it's something to like. Yeah, it's low A, of course, but like you said, you knew this guy was going to take more time than your average college bat. You're trying to move quickly, right? Like it was always going to take time for him. But that upside and that blend of speed and power, like you're seeing it shine through now. He's walking at a 10% clip now, which is better than he may have expected. And you're gonna give him time to see what happens. It's a fun pick for a fourth rounder that's trending up now.
No doubt. Before we jump back in, I want to tell you a little bit about our friends at Loupe. It's my favorite place to go buy sports cards or buy into sports card breaks because it is safe, it is easy, and you know you're going to get exactly what you ordered. Are you tired of sketchy card breaks or getting ghosted after big pulls on other apps? I definitely was tired of dealing with that fear, and that's why with Loupe, you can have the calm and confidence of the fact that what you order is going to be what you get. I've been collecting cards for a while now, and specifically really focusing on trying to get those Kevin McGonigal, Luis Pena cards on Loupe. Those cards are not very available in the marketplace anywhere now. You got to pull them and break. So I've been trying to buy into breaks now and pull some of those cards, both in 2025 Bowman Baseball, by the way. And I will say it is so much fun. You can just do it from your fingertips. Of course, they have the Loupe app, which I'll tell you more about in a second. But you can go kind of canvas your way through all the different card shops in there. And these are all verified card shops or breakers who have, again, been vetted through the Loupe app, so you know exactly what you're getting. They're also fun people to hang out with. I'll talk to them about the cards that I'm chasing as they're ripping. The people that are in the chat that are also buying into the break are a ton of fun as well. And the fun part about it is they're all into it as well. Of course, it's either owners of a card shop or breakers, so they can tell you about the product. They can tell you more about what you need to know or what you could be getting into, or if you already know what you're doing, it's just fun to talk to those people who are in the hobby for the same reasons that you are. It's a one-stop shop. Loop is for collectors, whether you're joining that live break, buying personals, or snagging a rare single from the marketplace. The marketplace is fast and simple. All the sellers as well are verified, so you don't have to dig through sketchy eBay listings or wait on slow shipping. Again, the favorite part for me is the social element. I like just talking to people in there, seeing what cards they're going for. We're going to be doing a live break with Hit Seekers at the National. They're on that platform. Love those folks out of Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. Great card shop over there. We had so much fun when we went in there in person, and at the National, I'll be doing a live Q&A while we're ripping cards and breaking in there. But even when I'm not on there, the folks at Hit Seekers are so much fun, and I know it's the same story for a lot of the breakers on there. And if you go to the Loupe app right now, and it's Loupe.cards/justbaseball, if you search Loupe.cards/justbaseball or click the link in our episode description, you can get a $10 credit towards your first purchase over $50. So if you click the link in our description or go to Loupe.cards, Loupe.cards/jbaseball, Loupe.cards/jbaseball, or the link in our episode description, you can get $10 in credit towards your first purchase over $50. Go check out the app. Let me know what cards you pull or what you buy. I always like to see what everybody's picking up.
All right, we are back with some pitchers. A lot of fun arms here. I like a lot of these college arms. I remember kind of looking through some of them last year and being intrigued by them. But we've got some college guys from last year's draft class that are just shoving right now up and down the minor leagues, especially in high A. I think that's where a lot of these guys have settled in right now at this point in the season. Starting with the Boston Red Sox, Peyton Tolley, second round pick last year of the Red Sox. One guy that you mentioned when you were doing the Red Sox top prospects update as kind of an up arrow guy in that system. It's been really gross from Tolley. The past, I mean, on the season in general, in 49 and 2/3 innings, it's 79 strikeouts. So the stuff has been overwhelming. But now we're starting to see the stuff blend with a little bit better results than earlier in the year. His last 4 outings, 21 and a third, 30 strikeouts, 7 walks in that span, a 2.95 ERA. The strikeouts have been there all year, but what is kind of taking Tolley to the next step, do you think, here in high A?
I mean, he is just so funky. He's
Yeah.
got 7.5 extension. And then on top of that, it's a low kind of horizontal, low 3/4 release, crossbody delivery, and he's getting 17 inches of vert from that. But I think it's a 7.5 feet of extension. That's just overwhelming, guys. But the specific leap at high A,
Yeah.
I really do think is just the feel for the secondaries, where he was very fastball heavy in the beginning of the year, and understandably so. He's dominating hitters with that fastball, but the slider has been a more reliable and consistent pitch for him. You look at the last 5 starts, he's landing that slider for a strike 75% of the time. Want to see that changeup get better for him, but that fastball slider combination, he can just ride to success. He's also seen his velocity jump as the season has progressed, where early in the year, it was a little sporadic, but averaging out closer to 94 and change. And I think first 6 starts, he averaged 94.5. And the last 6 starts, he's averaging 95.6. So he's seen that tick up. That's really going to be felt by hitters with the 7.5 feet of extension. And then the slider being a tick harder too. So really uncomfortable like that. This guy at worst is going to be a disgusting left-handed reliever.
Right.
But I think we're seeing the command is getting to a point where he could stick in that rotation and be a middle rotation arm.
Yeah, and he just got bumped to Double A, so now we're going to get to him at the next level, which will be a good test for him because he was dominating this level in terms of the stuff. At least his last outing, he had 21 swing and misses at the high A level. So I mean, it's time for him. So he'll make his first Double A start probably in 2 days here as we're recording on Thursday, the 26th. So excited to see what he looks like in Double A because it's been incredible all season from a stuff standpoint.
I'm always interested because the same thing I would say with like the heavy changeup guys, like the Drew Thorpe style, but Drew Thorpe's changeup was like a borderline 80. But the guys that are changeup dependent, but then don't have a lot else otherwise, those guys sometimes dominate the lower levels, and then they get to Double A and maybe hit a bit of a wall. I think deception guys, that can be the case too. But I think Tolley is so weird and so unique, and again gets as much extension as anybody in the minor leagues, that is probably going to play just as well. But I am always interested, usually to Double A, how those deception guys succeed and how much that deception continues to play up.
Yeah, 100%. The next up is a pair of guys on the same organization, and this organization is just dominating in terms of their pitching development right now in many different ways, and just system development. New York Mets, second and third rounders last year, both college guys, both pretty advanced arms, and what they're doing lately at the high A level is ridiculous. Jonathan Santucci was a second rounder, and then Nate Dom was the third rounder there for the Mets organization. The last month, so the last five outings for these two guys, Santucci, 25 innings at a 108 ERA, 26 strikeouts, seven walks. And then you flip it over to Nate Dom, who's been a little more conservative with their innings usage, but his last five outings, a 20 and a third, a .89 ERA, 26 strikeouts, and eight walks. Both these guys all season have been very good, but particularly lately. Actually, Santucci had a little bit of a rougher start to the season, but both these guys lately have been incredible.
Santucci, man, I honestly, he wasn't even on my radar too much
Yeah.
until I think the last start. I
It's just the
saw,
last few. Yeah, it's
yeah, the
been
game
better.
score was like his highest of the season, and it was like 5 innings of one hit ball. But his first six starts at high A, he had an 8 ERA,
Right.
and then since then, I mean, he has been nails. Seven
Yep.
starts since. He has a 1.03 ERA. That walk rate's been cut to 8%. He's striking out 28% of batters. He was a guy with some first round buzz too for Duke, and
Yeah.
just did not have a very good year and slipped. Too many of his pitches are non-competitive, and that's held him back. But he's cut down that number pretty significantly, I think, right now over this stretch. So, I mean, in that organization with his talent, the talent has never been a question with his left arm. So that's a guy that I do think could be on the up and up if he can continue to
Yeah.
extend and extrapolate this. And then uh, Dom, don't I think it's Dom.
I think it's
Nate
dumb.
Dom, it's fun because it's a little bit more diverse of an arsenal, but he does still kind of go fastball slider heavy. But the characteristics are interesting. I'm eager to see if he starts to mix in that curveball more and that changeup more. But just another arm that you look at what the Mets have been targeting, you look at the results, you look at the raw stuff, and you can start to get excited about what they may have there if you're a Mets fan. And that fastball is getting nearly 19 inches of vert from a 5.7 release height.
Hmm.
Reminder, like average is about 16 and a half inches of vert from a 5.9 release height. So that's pretty much plus vert. It's definitely plus vert from slightly above average extension. That's going to set up the rest of your arsenal pretty well. The Mets know what they're targeting with their arms.
Yeah, they definitely have a type here, and both these guys look like they're trending up. I think, given their age and their development, I expect both these guys in Double A probably later in the season, which will be another good test. A lot of these arms I'm mentioning are guys who have been college guys that they get to that high level and they kind of settle in at high A and they start to really show it. But then that test is we've heard it a million times. That jump from high A to Double A,
Yep.
especially for the first year college guys, is where you really see guys kind of separate.
Especially out of Brooklyn, where I mean, a lot of times the ball does not fly there, so you can pitch with a
Yeah.
little bit more confidence. You don't have to worry about the long ball as much, and you will have to a little bit more in Binghamton.
Yeah. The next guy up is the sixth rounder by the Yankees last year, who has been one of the few arms that's been better in high A in that league than the two guys we just mentioned. Griffin Herring of the Yankees has just been ridiculous this year. He starts in single A. This was a guy, who opens up. He's an LSU guy, he was good in the rotation from what I remember last year, even though he wasn't as much of a draft guy. But starts the season in single A, 8 starts there with a 1.21 ERA, striking out a ridiculous amount of batters, over 30%, 33% there, and then gets up to high A about a month ago, and then his first four starts in high A, a .67 or .76 ERA. Numbers across the board are good. The strikeout rate has dropped a little bit just at the next level, but he's not walking many people. He's walking less people in high A. In general, a 105 ERA on the season in your first
Jeez.
professional year, you'll take that.
Oh yeah, another guy that just had not been on my radar too much because I mean, 6th round pick who doesn't throw very hard, and
Yeah.
he doesn't. Here's my question for you. Let's assume so he's a lefty with good command that's going to continue to get better and some decent characteristics. Fastball has a little bit above average carry. He locates it pretty well. Slider looks like it's got a good shape to it, and the changeups probably might be his best pitch.
Yeah.
But he's averaging 90.3 miles per hour on the fastball. I don't want to be too much of just like, okay, you got to throw gas. Like opponents are
Right.
169 against him with a 471 OPS, and lefties and righties are equally. Honestly, he's actually getting righties out more than lefties because that changeup is so
The
good.
changeup, yeah.
But are a guy, if he does not tick up, if he's just 90 miles an hour,
Yeah.
will you discount him until he gets to the big leagues? Like, will you have to like? Is it one of those where like, I don't know if it's going to play at the big leagues, but if
I
he's
think at
putting up
least till he
numbers in high A,
gets.
double A, triple A, like when do you start to buy in?
I think you can buy in if he gets to AAA and he's doing stuff like this, right? I think you can start to at least. I think you definitely have to see it at the big level, right? Like it's tricky because it's 90 and even those secondaries I think are good, but I'm not sure the changeup's probably the standout, right? But the breaking ball is solid, right? And I'm looking at stuff, but it's and the numbers are crazy. So you got to see it in AA for sure. But then like I think when you get to the upper levels, you can start to buy in a little bit. The more you see it,
If
it's
he's striking
just
out 30%,
right. I don't think he's going to do that at AA, but it's still just like I think you have to give him some credit for what he's doing and looking at the development track. And he's an SEC guy. Like he's done well at every step of the way. So at some point you have to look at this stuff and say, hey, like yeah, this stuff might not be up there with some of these other guys, but like he's producing at every single level so far. So if he keeps doing that, like yeah, he's not a top 100 guy, but like he could be a big league arm for sure.
No, I like the track record point because it is
Yeah, it
the SEC, and I mean he legitimately
was
did not
great.
really have a bad outing in the
Yeah,
SEC in 2024, like at all. Like he was consistently putting up zeros for them.
yeah,
So, and then threw well on the Cape for 3 outings, like really well on the Cape. So I'm with you. I think Double A again will be the big test for him, and what I like is he's limiting damage. You only have 2 homers and 8 extra base hits against him this
yeah.
year. It's a 228 slug. So, I mean, this guy might just be a weak contact savant, and you hope that he gains a tick. I mean, if he's 91, 92 a little bit more, then I feel a lot comfortable. Just
Right.
once you get below that 90 threshold,
Yeah.
it gets a little tough, but hasn't seemed to be an issue so far. And in high A, he hasn't missed a beat. Low A, you can understand the pitchability guy maybe, just dominating, but high A has been more of the same.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just going to start this one with a question off the bat. What is the Angels' plan with Ryan Johnson? Because I don't know. This guy breaks camp as a reliever and then goes to high A. I'm not sure there's many players that ever go from a big league spot to a high A spot. Now they're transitioning him into a starter in high A. It's actually been pretty good in high A. His
Yeah.
last, he's made 8 starts there. His last 5 starts, particularly, a 2.48 ERA, 34 strikeouts across 29 innings in his last 5 starts. It's been really solid as a starter. Why just not try that in the first place? If that was always, I don't know.
They're trying to win a World
Regardless of
Series, man.
yeah, I guess so. Get Mike Trout his ring, right? I mean, that's how it goes, maybe. But
I mean, it's just leave it to the Angels to have the most insane development track ever. But I mean,
been good.
he's back-to-back outings of 7 innings, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm like, all right, Cortez as well, who they drafted, like they're
Cortez has been good
developing
too. I
him
was
as a
gonna say.
starter.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the command a lot, and that's why I didn't love him as like a fast track reliever guy as much. If you look at his last 5 starts, 70% strike rate, a 77% strike rate on his slider, which he is dominating hitters with. They're 2 for 28 against it in that span, with huge whiff numbers. He's just overwhelming them. I think they should just bring him up to double now. I think he's already shown enough in high A, but the velo fluctuations have been interesting. He's had some outings where he's averaging 91, and then he's had some outings where he's averaged 94. So that part I'm interested in, but he's also just getting used to this significantly more just intense workload. But he's clearly able to be stretched out and have success, and he clearly throws strikes. I think this is actually the right path instead of having him be a leverage arm for you. So I like it. I hope that they just stick to this and don't just keep ragdolling him back and forth, because it looks like he could be a back end of the rotation starter potentially if they give him enough runway here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, I think Double A is probably about right for him at this point, but just a very unique transition, or just
It's just
first minor
bizarre.
league season. Yeah, it's interesting for sure, but we'll see. I mean, it seems like he's finding some things as a starter. So, a next starter here is a guy that I really liked to come out of the draft. I kind of was looking at him as a third, fourth round target when I was looking at White Sox stuff. Daniel Egan of the Diamondbacks was a late third rounder out of a small school at a Presbyterian college. So not a school known for baseball necessarily. And he has been really good of late. He's been good all season, but particularly in the past little stretch here, Egan has really been putting it together overall. 32 strikeouts in his last 21 and a third in his last 4 starts. starts. So the whiff numbers are coming together for Egan. Now he's striking out almost 13 for 9 this season at the high A level. Goes straight to high A. He's walking a little bit more than you'd want to see, right? The walk rate's a bit high here, 11% or so, but nothing, too bad. But in general, the results from Egan have been very good this season and encouraging from a guy kind of, you expect a smaller school guy to maybe have a little bit more development track, and he goes straight to high A and has been comfortable all season. He has two distinct breaking balls that I was looking at some film of that look very different and very fun. That he bounces off the fastballs, kind of mid 90s or so, and it's been good this season from pretty much consistently for Egan.
I like that you mentioned the distinct breaking balls. They probably
Yeah,
are as distinct as you're going to see.
yeah,
It's just gyro slider essentially, or
right,
it's a bullet slider because it's getting
right.
1 inch of vert and 0 horizontal.
Cutter, yeah, well,
Yeah,
not
and
even,
then
yeah,
the curveball is getting 13 and a half vert and 0 horizontal. So that's just straight downer.
yeah,
Um, Maybe even backing up sometimes, which is nasty. Those are two very distinct 5 miles per hour apart. That's fun. And then the fastball characteristic, it's a high release, but I like the high, like we just talked to Jaden Ham on the show. And
yeah.
Jaden Ham, high release guy, but it's riding fastball and then hammer curveball off of that.
No.
That's exactly what you have here. 20 inches of vert, so not quite as much vert as Ham from a similar release at bucket, but that curveball has even more depth vertically. That's got to be a tunneling nightmare with the
Yeah.
20 vert and then the negative 13 vert on the curveball. Then you have that bullet slider as well. That's a really fun mix. And then if you can start to find a little bit of a feel for the changeup, it could be there. That could help a lot. But I think just even the fact that he has those two distinct breaking balls will buy him time. I think this was. I know you were on him out of the draft.
Yeah.
Great shout because the stuff is
Yeah.
is for real. I think the thing to monitor is going to be command a little bit. It's held down by one really bad like 7 walk outing, but he's had a couple 4 walk outings and stuff like that. I think the depth of the curveball makes it hard to consistently throw strikes. But what's interesting is the fastball command has actually been where he's struggled a bit. But I think
Mm.
this is a guy that if the command gets a little bit better, I agree with you. He can make a leap.
Yeah, no, definitely an interesting guy to watch. I think it was a nice pick by the. I remember he was kind of getting some late second into the beginning of the third shout, and then the D-backs get him at the very end of the third round. It's a pretty good pick for that organization who could use some guys pitching that can potentially move pretty quickly. I mean, where he's at in high A right now, I think you can see him in double A this season, and then move from there, be a big league option maybe next year at some point.
Well, the last 5 starts, that walk rate's cut to 6.6%. Small sample, but
Nice.
you see maybe one more good start that way. Maybe you can get confident moving him up there.
Yeah, a couple more names here. Boston Bateman of the Padres, second round pick. You had him in the Padres top picks. Your top prospects. We just kind of went through that list recently. But Boston Bateman is has ticked up lately for sure compared to where he was earlier in the season. You're seeing just more and more consistent outings, better results from him across the last little stretch of time. Where's his last 30? His last 30 game or his last 4 starts in the past month. A 2.18 ERA, 21 strikeouts across 21 or 20 and 2/3 innings. The walk rate is coming down a little bit, and just kind of interesting overall results from a guy that is super young still. 19, he's going to be 19 pretty much till the end of the season. And now we're seeing it in single A for the Padres. He's putting it together.
And he's 6'7", 250
Yeah,
pound 19-year-old. So like there's a lot of upside there. As we talked about in that Padres episode, like at least I think you can feel good about a reliever here who has a
yeah,
nasty slider and is sitting 95 as a starter at 19 years old. So you put him in short spurts, he could be touching 100 by the time he's 21 years old. So that part is exciting, but I think clearly they want to develop him as a starter. The feel for the changeup is going to need to get far better. But the fastball slider combination, he's landing for a strike at a
yeah.
67% clip. So I think overall, really encouraging stuff from a 19-year-old project big lefty. The raw stuff is there and definitely a guy to monitor and I think is very
Yeah.
interesting.
And for young guys too, like he's given up 1 homer this season. He's
Mhm.
keeping the ball on the ground. He's not getting hit hard at single A level for a 19-year-old, right? I think it's worth noting that it's been there's still some things to kind of get through there, but for his age, he's not getting hit hard. He's getting hit a little bit, but he's not getting beat up on. He's not getting homers cranked off him, and he's keeping the ball, 54% ground ball rate against him this
That
season.
important note there for sure.
Yeah.
Because like if you can blend the swing miss, 26% strikeout rate and a 55% ground ball rate, you're going to be in a good spot. And it's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, 100%. Last name here is someone that I cannot say I'm very familiar with at all, and I'm not sure you are either. But it was a fun poll because I looked at it, his numbers in the past month, and he's been really nasty. Everett Catlett of the Colorado Rockies organization is a funny little shout here, just because I don't know, I wanted to throw a cool name in here. And last five starts in single A this season, 30 innings with 30 strikeouts, only 5 walks, a 2.27 ERA in that span, and has just been gross of late. I really can't say I know much about him, but the numbers lately have been popping. He's been striking out everybody. He's not walking many guys, and it's been good lately.
I had no idea who this is. I'm
Yeah,
real
good,
reaction right now as I'm watching.
good.
Shocker, lefty who throws a little weird.
Yeah,
Rockies
of
love that.
course. Yeah, I saw a
No, but I
lefty from the
mean,
Rockies.
I'm looking at the stuff. I'm 6'7", 230
Yep,
from
just a
Georgetown is funny.
just a big funky lefty,
That's
and
what,
he's striking out a ton of people right now, and he's getting outs.
yeah, honestly, sick name too.
That's yep.
That is not scheme the ball in the yard. 2 homers. It's fastball's average 92 this year, but he's getting some run and ride to it. Seems like the slider is like a slurvy good pitch for him. Changeup is also a decent pitch. That's probably his best offering. He's getting huge whiff numbers on the changeup. It's an interesting arm. What round did you say they got him in?
12th. Yeah, this was
Yeah, I
this
mean
was a
that's not
a
bad.
deep shout. This was a
Look at the
very deep shout.
Rockies.
Yeah,
Look
exactly.
at
Look at
the
the
Rockies,
Rockies
man.
snagging a little arm there. So that was one more I had to mention, and there's plenty of other guys we could have talked about for sure. I just found a video on Twitter looking it up of Everett Catlett in high school sitting 82. So this is
Oh my
awesome.
god.
This is great. It's the first video on Twitter because there's nothing else on him. So yeah, that's awesome. But there's plenty of other names we could have got to. The huge draft class, obviously a lot of guys, and as guys continue to break out, there'll be other guys from this class that end up making our heat sheets normally of just guys that are performing well. But this is a handful of guys and a good taste of just kind of where this class is at right now.
Yeah, and if you just found us and you're like, well, why didn't you talk about Trey Savage and Cal Steffen? Like,
Yes.
we just did on the last heat sheet. Both those guys are absolutely shoving. And
Yeah.
by the way, Trey Savage again for the Blue Jays.
Yep.
Last
Nuts.
time out
Yep.
against Hartford, 5 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 1 walk, 8 Ks. That guy might
Crazy.
pitch in the bigs this year. And Cal's been just as good behind him. But this was really fun. You had a great way to check in on so many different, and I'm sure there's a ton of other names that we missed, as you mentioned. So on the
Yeah.
YouTube comments, let us know who we missed,
Yep.
who else is performing out of the draft class, and players that you might want us to hit on next time. We'll probably find another fun variable of like the heat sheet next week, or just do like a regular heat sheet again, like we did the first time around. But please subscribe, share the show, let us know what you want us to talk about next, especially some of the players that you thought we may have missed. Any final thoughts, Elijah?
No, I'm good, man. This was fun. I think it's a cool draft class. I think my final thought in general would be like this is a pretty fun draft class compared to where I think it was getting talked about. You said that earlier, but I think that's
100%.
worth noting here that this has been there's guys on every different team I think right now generally that is at least fun to check in on and exciting to see the development of. And it's really cool to see 5 guys already at the big league level like
Yeah,
making an impact. And I think there's going to be more of them this season. I think that's where baseball's heading, right? With college baseball, the place it's at right now, we're going to get more and more of these studs that are making their NIL money in college, and then they're ready to be in the bigs within a year of getting drafted. And I think that it's so cool to get a taste of that because I love watching these young guys get up and just the energy and the excitement it brings to teams when you see your first round pick from the year prior already up and helping your team.
huge for the interest in the draft too.
Yeah,
Where
totally.
like instead of okay, great, we drafted a guy, see you in 4 years. Just knowing that hey, you could see this guy as soon as next season for you.
Yeah.
I think is really exciting, and I think makes fans more excited to tap into the draft. Which speaking of, next episode, it's probably going to get out on late Friday or early Saturday. We're going to be talking to the Marlins director of amateur scouting, Frankie Pillier. So that's going to be really fun. Just telling you, I can't wait to pick his brain on just the whole draft process, all of that stuff. That'll be Jack and I breaking it down with him. So we'll get a little bit of Marlins approach, but also just general. I think hearing from him how the draft is approached by teams. Of course, he was with the Mariners before, who have been phenomenal in that regard. Will be very fun. So keep an eye out for that episode. Reminder to join our Discord. It is so much fun. We're answering questions all the time in there, talking ball, whether it's for prospects, dynasty, fantasy, baseball cards, MLB side, betting, you name it. We're in there and we got a channel for all of it. And it's been a blast. So would love to have you all in there. Thank you all for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you tomorrow.